Right. So first topic we have to study is discusses commissioning ceremony of Indian naval ship INS, that is called as INS Malwan. Okay. Malwan is basically the coastal town associated with which kingdom? That is Maratha kingdom. Okay. So that is why the ship is referred as INS Malwa. So few point we have to keep in mind about this. First of all, whenever you look at any INS, that means Indian naval ship or vessel operated by Indian Navy, two things you will find. One is the name of the ship and other is what you call as class of the ship. Class means same type of ship is being constructed. So suppose 10 ship they have built like that. So the first ship of that category is referred by what term? Class. All other ships are referred by name as such. So Malwan is the name of this ship, but which kind of vessel it belongs to? Mahe class. So if I say that INS Malwa is a Mahe class vessel, what should come into your mind? That the first vessel of this kind would be what ship? INS Mahe. Okay. Similarly, you have, for example, INS Satpura, right? Satpura class, Shivalik class we have. Shivalik class means the first vessel of that category will be referred by what name? INS Shivalik. Then within that you have multiple categories. So this is second such class vessel, Mahe class vessel, and where it was commissioned? You have Karwar in Karnataka. It is total 6th of 16 ASWSWCs, that is anti-submarine warfare shallow water craft. Yeah, that is what ASWSWC mean. Shallow water also is referred as what other term? It is called as brown water. Why brown water? If you go in the coastal areas near the beach, what is the color of water? Brown. If you go in the deeper ocean, far ocean, what is the color of water? Blue. Okay, so that's why naval capacity is also classified as brown water capability and blue water capability. If I say that certain ship is blue water ship, that means where it is operating largely, far away in the deeper ocean. If I am saying that it is a brown water ship, that means where it is operating near the coastal area. So anti-submarine warfare shallow water craft, which builder has constructed it in the Cochin, right? So look here interestingly, ship was built in which state? Kerala. Commissioned in which state? Karnataka. And named after which state? Maharashtra, right? So three different things are there. So built by Cochin Shipyard Limited. Indian Navy largely built ship across 4 different companies you have. I think we have discussed that in the location factor of industries. One is in Visakhapatnam Shipyard. Then Kolkata you have Garden Reach Shipbuilders. Then we have the Maharashtra Majgaon Ship Dockyard Limited. And other is Cochin, okay, Cochin Shipyard Limited. These are the 4 major shipyards where the Indian Navy largely built its indigenous ship. Part of it was Mahe class. Yes, it is total how many such vessels we have? Planned 16. 16 vessel Indian Navy is planning to build, which will be ASW, SWC. Out of that, 8 vessel will be built under which category? Mahe class category. That is the thing. So, indigenization of naval platform, that is it example of. And these days, Indian Navy has this ensured that whatever ship we are building, at least 70% of its components should come from where? From within India itself. Only 30% we will import something, some parts not. So that is also this example of. So key capabilities, anti-submarine warfare. Anti-submarine warfare means ship is largely designed to neutralize submarine. Why we are building anti-submarine capacity? Largely the threat comes not from Pakistan but from China. Okay, they have continuously been building a lot of submarines and they are engaging basically this moving it also in the Indian Ocean as such. Underwater surveillance, it will be used for mine warfare. Okay, recently in the Strait of Hormuz case you would have studied. Iran was targeting that we would lay lot of mines in the Strait of Hormuz. So if mine is laid in the large water body, if any ship comes in contact with the mine, what will happen? It will blast. So mine warfare means these ships have a capacity, they can find out these mines and neutralize them without destroying them. So that is very important. So mine warfare. Suppose that tomorrow we have war with Pakistan, and what Pakistan does? Put a lot of mines in the Arabian Sea. In that case, what is the problem? International maritime trade will stop because no ship would want or dare to come toward India's coast. There, that is where the capability of these ships can be used. Littoral operation. Littoral is nothing but the other term for coastal operations, shallow water operation, and will be used for defense purposes to ensure that our the ports that we have, the ships that we have, infrastructure, industries that we have in coastal areas, they are given protection That is the objective with which the INS Mahe class has been designed. Strategic importance, here we have written. We know that 90% of India's global international trade, not global, India's international trade, better. 90% of India's international trade takes place through which kind of areas? Port areas, right? That's why protection of harbor or port is very important. Plus all Indian naval bases, where are they located? They are also located on the port itself. To provide protection to naval bases, to provide protection to sea lanes. Sea lanes means it is largely a communication lane, right? Communication both for commercial vessel, military vessel, okay, that you have cruise ships, for example, passenger vessels and all that. Plus offshore installation. So we know that natural gas reserve of India, where would you find? Krishna Godavari basin. Where else would you find? Mumbai High. All of these are which kind of installation? Offshore installation. So provide protection to them, and any kind of shallow water threat the ship would detect and try to neutralize it. That is the strategic importance. Now the ship will not only come into picture if there is some kind of war or threat, it also in the peace time would be utilized for what purposes? Maritime domain awareness. Maritime domain awareness is a naval term that is used to have understanding about the entire ocean basin. Okay, remember ocean basin, first chapter we are going to discuss relief and division of ocean. What we have talked about, ocean in this bottom, it is not a homogeneous landform. You have what? Seamounts are there, geodes are there, submarine canyons are there, trenches are there, right? Mid-oceanic ridges are there. So how can you properly utilize the resources of ocean bottom? Only if you have understanding of the entire ocean bottom. That is what we call as maritime domain awareness. So how will you understand this? You need to have surveillance system, radars for example, right? Maritime patrol aircraft, submarine operations, surface combatant, and overall enhanced underwater monitoring. That is all this ship would be involved or engaged in. Significance of India, nothing, same thing. It strengthens what kind of capability? Anti-submarine warfare. Why we are building anti-submarine warfare? Single answer, Chinese threat, persistent Chinese threat. Indigenous naval manufacturing, this is example of, actually if you look at 1-2 years, whatever naval vessels we have commissioned or we have inducted in Navy, 95% of them have been built where? In India itself. If you go back pre-2015, 2016 era, more than 90% of vessels, what we were doing? Importing from outside. Most of this coming from Russia as such. Right, now we are building all type of vessels, not only small vessels like this. So frigates, you have aircraft, this carrier for example. We have only 2 aircraft carrier. One we imported earlier from Russia. Now one we have built inside India itself. That means it is a clear reflection that we have built our platform and capability that we can build all kind of vessel, starting from a smaller craft to the largest craft. Largest craft is aircraft carrier, and nothing is larger than that. Plus, because of this, what we are sure about? Enhanced coastal security. Okay, so that is also the focus area of government, especially after which attack? 26/11 attack we have seen. Maritime security, sea line of communication, we are providing security to combat ready. So that is the overall motto of this ship, that what we are focused upon. Always Navy is combat ready, credible. You can depend upon the ship. You understand what is capability, we can utilize it when time comes. Cohesive in nature, that means it can work with other ship of the similar classes and even higher classes. And we have built design keeping in mind the future readiness, like a stealth capability for example. That is the overall INS Malwan. From exam perspective in Prelims, they were not going to ask you that what is the INS Malwan and all that. You can use this as an example or pointers when you're discussing about the defense, evolution of India, right? The development of India, manufacturing in India and all that. Then next is related to landslides. 4 people are killed due to landslides where? In the western ghats of Kerala as such, right? So, now western ghats, we know that landslides are common across both regions. Which region? In the north across the Himalayan mountain system, and in the south along which region? Western Ghat as such. So based on the Geological Survey of India, India's 14.7% of landslides are concentrated where? In the Western Ghat area as such. And within Western Ghat also, it passes through 6 states as we have seen in the geography. Which state is very vulnerable? Kerala. Why? Think I told you, you start from Gujarat to Kerala. Which part of Western Ghat is higher? Northern part or southern part? Where would you find highest peak? Southern part. Okay, Anaimudi peak we have discussed, right, on all that. Higher the elevation, higher is the probability of landslide as such, okay, because those mountains are more unstable in nature. That's why vulnerability is high. Wayanad, 13th out of 147 district, if you rank them on the basis of landslide vulnerability in the entire India. And it's not that landslide is kind of rare event, it happens almost every year. So recurring landslide event as such. So major events we have witnessed between 2018 to 2021 also. Last year also, Wayanad landslide we have seen. This year again we have landslide. So vulnerability is high and also occurrence is very high. Right? Two things we have to keep in mind. One is the vulnerability, other is the frequency. Vulnerability is what is the possibility of occurrence of the particular disaster. Frequency is in real time. How many such disasters are unfolding as such. So in both of them, Kerala or Wayanad rank what? Very high, okay, up top as such. What is the natural factors behind these landslides? So this area fortunately is free of any kind of seismic disturbance because no plate movement is taking place. Himalayas, due to the earthquake also landslide is triggered. What causes the earthquake? It is the continental convergence between Indian and Eurasian plate. Here on the other hand, the most responsible factor is what? Heavy monsoon rainfall. That's why you see rainfall is the season when you have the most of the landslide. So when heavy rainfall happens, and we know that the western slope of the Western Ghat is very steep in nature, and we know that which kind of rainfall happens here? Orographic rainfall, very heavy rainfall. So during those cases, whatever soils, rocks you have in the mountain, they become saturated with water. That means they will become what? More mobile, right? More wet in nature. Plus the soil wise also laterite soil you have here, which has more of sandy component. Sandy component means soil particle size is higher. Higher the particle size, easier would be to flow as such. That's why, and plus we have discussed, slope is what? Very steep, more than 20 degree of the slope angle you will find. So because of all this topography, the landslide probability comes what? Much more higher compared to other mountain. Like you compare Eastern Ghats. So you go in Eastern Ghat, landslides are very rare phenomena. Why? Two reasons. First, slope is very gentle. Second, rainfall amount is very less. And third, what do you have? If you look at this Eastern Ghat, the elevation of Eastern Ghat is much more lower compared to Western Ghat. So lower elevation, lower rainfall, gentle slope. That is why Eastern Ghat receives what? Less. This Eastern Ghat experiences what? Less number of landslide. So that's how the geography or topography plays a role. Now it's not only that human factors are responsible. Natural factors are responsible. Even human factors have played a role in increasing the intensity of landslide. What kind of human factors? Deforestation, right? So like if you have forest trees, they capture the soil. They do not allow soil or rocks to move easily. You cut the trees, soil become very loose. That means the probability of landslide will increase. Second, what we are doing in the Western Ghat, expanding the agricultural area. If you are carrying out agriculture in the Ghat areas, what will happen? You are continuously plowing the soil, moving the soil, right? And you cut the crops. Once you cut the crop, entire soil is free of vegetation. Again, easier to move. Construction activities have led to slope instability. Okay, imagine that this is a natural slope and it is fully covered with dense vegetation. That means soil and rocks are more stable. So you are cutting the vegetation also, and also you are making roads here and all this construction of the houses, restaurants, basically resorts and all that. So because of the cut that you make in trees, what happens? Entire slope becomes unstable, right? Roads that you make in Himalayas, so mountain is like this. How do you make road? You make a cut here. You make a cut. That means mountain becomes something like this. Imagine this entire upper rock. Is it now supported properly? No, because what you have done? You have cut this entire rock which was supporting the upper part. Heavy rainfall, earthquake, what would it trigger? Collapse of the entire structure as such. So that's how construction activities also contribute to landslide. Tea plantation that is grown here, and mostly why construction is at boom? Due to the high demand of what facilities? Resort and tourism based infrastructure, right? So you cannot just build resort there. You have to build in power lines. Again, you have to cut the hills. You have to bring in water supply and all that. Again, you have to cut the hills. So due to all these tourism related infrastructure development, massive increase in the landslide probability you have seen. In this context, in environment, you would have studied about Madhav Gadgil committee. So it was the committee formed under him to look at the ecological sensitivity of Western Ghat, and he underlined that this entire Western Ghat is basically a fragile landscape. Any kind of anthropogenic intervention would bring a lot of disaster in this area. He even suggested that there should be complete restriction on any kind of development. mining, infra development, construction activities, at least how much percentage of area? 67% of area. The sustainable land use is focused upon, and overall we have to reduce the disaster. But again, the committee report recommendation is not being implemented. What is the way forward if you want to reduce the intensity or frequency of landslides? Regulate construction, because this is the biggest culprit. Okay, natural factor indeed acts here, but what amplifies the adverse or negative effect of natural factor? Human factor, largely driven by what boom? Construction boom. Second, we also can implement early warning system. That means we cannot minimize or reduce completely landslide. We have to protect the life of people. How do you protect the life of people? You warn them before that landslide is imminent in the next few days. So the vulnerable areas, you can evacuate people, bring them to the safer places. Monitor landslide. Settlement should be sustainable in nature. And overall, you have to do what? More research and mapping of risk, based on which you decide the policies for development in this Western Ghat. That is the second topic. Then third is India updates. Natural disaster, we already have covered disaster management. Okay, there I told you that NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, within that this Disaster Management Act, we have created several funds, for example. National Disaster Response Fund, National Disaster Mitigation Fund and all that. But those funds are only available to such disaster which is categorized as disaster in India. So now we have expanded the list by bringing in two more disasters, which are these heat waves and lightning. These were not earlier considered as natural disaster. So what is the biggest benefit? Now the states that are witnessing lightning like disaster or heat wave like disaster, they would get immediate relief by which forces? State disaster response forces. If additional need is required, they can also be given assistance by NDRF, we have discussed, National Disaster Response Force. Heat wave mitigation projects can be implemented using what fund? Disaster mitigation fund. Earlier state have these funds, but they cannot use for the heat wave. Why? Because it is not considered as disaster. State level response can be seen here. So overall, more resources in the terms of fund, in the terms of what I can call as forces, human resources, is now available to the states to mitigate both lightning and this heat wave. So earlier, how many disasters we had? 12. Now after this we have 14 now. What are the list of disaster, or that is considered a natural disaster under the DM Act? So these are recent one too, heat wave and lightning we have added. Earlier what we had? Cyclone, drought, earthquake, flood, okay, landslide, cloudburst, tsunami, hailstorm, avalanche, cloudburst, okay, we have written pest attack and frost or cold wave. Now see, this is very important from prelims perspective, because first of all, we have added two disasters. They can easily ask questions. They can give you 5-6 disaster. I can ask which of this is considered as a natural disaster based on DM Act in India. That's why make sure you remember the names of which are disaster, which are not the disaster. Yeah, so here, if you look here, cold wave already was considered as what? Disaster before. Heat wave we have added this year itself. So there was demand since several years before. Now this heat wave, when we can say a place is experiencing heat wave, there is a simple definition. Suppose that on an average in the month of June, the average temperature of a city is how much? 45 degrees Celsius. Average means long period average you're talking about, last 50 to 100 years and all. But this year, what we are witnessing? At least for 5 or more consecutive days, the daily maximum temperature surpasses the average maximum temperature by minimum how many degrees Celsius? 5 degrees. That means suppose that 45, now in the same place in the July for 5 days, we have how much temperature? 50 degrees. Then we can say that what this place is experiencing? Heat wave like phenomenon. That is how we define it. So prolonged, simple, prolonged abnormal heat, much more higher temperature than the average that was felt. Largely in India, it is felt in which month? March, June. That is when, because after June you have the rainfall that start, temperature reduces. Peak is in the May, because you have extreme dryness, absence of any kind of rainfall. Sometime in July also. So again, it is not nationwide. It depends upon region to region, because different region, different places will have the variation in temperature. Lightning also we have discussed. Basically, the cumulonimbus cloud, you have the separation of charged particles, and due to the separation of charged particle, positive particles go in the upper part of the cloud, negative particles go in the lower part of cloud. So a potential difference develops, and what you see is an electric current or discharge that occurs. That is what we call as electric discharge, lightning strike and all. So that can be a various type. If the lightning discharge is taking place from one cloud to other cloud, we call it as C2C. Intra-cloud, if it is within a single cloud, or sometime even from cloud to ground. When it reaches the ground, it is very high temperature, 10,000, 30,000 degrees Celsius, and it causes complete burning of the vegetation, and the people are caught then also. Thunderstorm associated lightning we see most in India. Significance of this development is we are now more in a more better position to adapt to what kind of changes? Climate changes. Understand why earlier government did not categorize heat wave as a disaster? Because the frequency of such occurrence was very rare. Why it was rare? Because the effect of global warming was not felt to that extent. Now with every year what we are witnessing, the effect or intensity of global warming has increased, and that's why the number of the days when we experience heat wave has increased more. Number of deaths that we witness because of heat wave also has significantly increased as such. That is the reason why we have now put them under the heat wave definition. Financing would be easier here, faster relief assistance would be provided. We'll also be able to build extreme weather resilience, and this all thing we have discussed. SDRF, NDRF, mitigation fund will now be accessible and available to the states as such. So that is the advantage of putting a particular event or phenomena as a natural disaster as such. That is the third. Next, what do we have is pellet gun uses. It was in news because of the Delhi protest, Jantar Mantar protest, all of you have seen. So, first of all, what is pellet gun? Pellet gun is basically, instead of a single bullet, what comes out is 100 of pellet that is made up of lead itself, right? And if it is fired from close range, what it can produce? Severe injury. Imagine that someone is firing pellet gun and you have hundreds of lead pellets are coming out, ejecting out, and someone is standing here. What will happen? It will go and insert itself inside the body as such, especially if the face is being attacked. Okay, if any of the pellet goes inside the eye, many times we have seen that it can also result in what? Permanent injuries as such, permanent blindness as such. If the brain is attacked, okay, if you are very close, in that case it can also cause death. Or for example, if vital organs are pierced, like heart and all that is pierced as such. So that's why fatality risk is very, very higher. And that is the reason why the standard operating procedure is that pellet gun should only be fired in the extreme cases, plus the number of pellet you are firing should also be kept at what level? Minimal level. Okay, we not have to fire continuously like how you fire bullets, and also to ensure that the lives are not lost, or for example eye injuries do not take place. What the security forces are instructed about, that you have to target below waist, legs and all that, because it is relatively safer. So that is the overall pellet gun. What is pellet gun? So pellet gun came in use long time ago in India, largely because of its large scale uses in which region? Kashmir region. Especially if you go to the year before 2018, okay, pre-2018. In pre-2018, when Article 370 still was in place in Kashmir, right? So Article 370 was in place. That means lot of protests you see, and stone pelting was a common way how young population or youth population of state used to attack the police forces, whether it is central armed police forces or even for example army and all that. So that's why in 2010, when the large scale disruption or unrest began in Kashmir, government then approved the uses of pellet guns there. So 2016 again pellet gun was used, and that's when lot of human right violations and abuses people began to say that has taken place. Mass blinding injuries was observed in many of the people of Kashmir. Even in the photograph that time, the journalists were saying that many children, they have lost their eyes. Why? Because they were in close range of pellet gun and all that. So international pressure scrutiny also was made, felt by Indian government, and that's why to reduce the damage, what is the normal bullet we are using or pellet we are using? Made up of lead. Lead is more damaging. So then government said that what kind of bullet we'll use? Instead of lead, we'll use plastic. So it will repel the people, right? It will make them like what you can say fearful because of the pain that is inflicted upon them, but it will not cause any grievous or fatal injury to people. So we'll be able to manage crowd control without causing lasting damage to the people. That's why plastic bullet has been introduced. Other thing that is used by like in the security forces and the mandate chapter, I told you which force is responsible for crowd control and riot control. That is RF, Rapid Action Force. Okay, easily identified by their blue-white jersey they have. So they are given two things. Pellet gun. Every battalion has one pellet gun. Right? It's not that every person has one pellet gun. Pellet gun is issued on battalion level. Battalion means one battalion is made up of how many personnels? 120 personnel. So for every 120 personnel of RAF, 1 to 2 pellet gun is issued by the government. Right? Other people, what do they have? They have normal baton, stick you can say, which they use for the crowd control and protective gears and all that you are seeing here as such. They also now have been issued what is called as shock batons. Okay, it was in use many places in America and all that, they are also using it. So what is shock baton? Handhold electroshock devices. Okay, it gives you minimum current or basically high voltage, low current shock is given, and it causes temporary pain and muscle disruption. Okay, so people will not be able to attack or move and all this. This both have been issued to RF. RF I told you under which Central Armed Police Forces it is part of. Which Central Armed Police Force it is part of? It is not a separate force. It is simply a wing of which agency? Central Reserve Police Force. Okay, CRPF as such. So that is the RF. Self-defense plus crowd control. In any of these two cases, they can either use pellet gun or they can use what? Shock batons as such. So that is why these two are in use, and specification simply not that important, but weight is less than 1 kg, length, temperature. Shock guns, it causes temperature range of how much? Result minus 20 degrees Celsius to plus 20. That is the kind of shock they give. Service life more than 5 years, battery is more than 1000 shock burst or charges. And that is the specification. Then issue was what? That whether it is legal or it should be legal to use the pellet gun or shock baton or not. Right? There are a lot of variations are there. Some people say that it depends on which kind of crowd you are targeting. Yeah, if the crowd is made up of unruly element, disruptive elements, right, of the society, then you can use it. But if crowd is peacefully assembling to demand something from the government, in those cases we should go with the principle of use of minimum force. Minimum force means we should not cause any kind of grievous assault on the people as such. So that's why Jantar Mantar protest, what is going on? Many people have filed petition that the use of pellet gun is not justified by rapid action force in these cases, because the people who have were assembled there, they were students and all that. Okay, so on also demand of students were met finally by government. So that is the reason why this all was in news. Then coming to the next topic is related to what you can call as critical minerals, the foundation for strategic resources and security. Now why critical mineral matter? Because next generation, next development that we'll see in India or anywhere in the world, okay, technological development or revolution that you talk about, AI driven revolution that you talk about, it will be with the help of which kind of mineral? If you go back before industrial revolution is start in the 18th century. 18th century industrial revolution largely brought by which mineral? So two things we can write, iron and coal. Coal was used for not only development of steel formation, manufacturing of steel, but also for the running of trains, engines, steam engines that you had. How you used to run those engines? By putting coal continuously in the furnace that releases steam by heating water, and then that is produced by heating, this creating heat, and then that is used to run the engine as such. Then next revolution that we see after iron and coal, before you go, agricultural revolution, that was brought by what you can call as crops and all that, seeds and that you have. Then next revolution we have is what? IT based revolution in early 2000 and all that we see. And now the new revolution people believe will be on the support, with the support of which kind of mineral? Critical minerals and such. Like for example, the next generation automobile, majority of them will run on what? EV batteries, electrical vehicle batteries. Okay, government of Delhi recently what it has said, that by 2030 all the two-wheeler, all the four-wheelers in Delhi would be replaced by which kind of vehicles? Electrical vehicles. Diesel, petrol we are trying to ban, remove continuously. Uptake intake also has increased because more and more brands are launching their EV version. So Tata, Mahindra we talk about in India and all that. Now all of the major brands have electrical vehicle cars. Now EV batteries will require which kind of critical mineral? Lithium for example. They will require what? Cobalt for example, nickel. Okay, even for smartphone, smart devices, what kind of battery you are using? Lithium ion battery. So all kind of equipments, electrical electronic equipments. Similarly, other sector is where we are bringing transformation is energy sector. Till now, majority of our energy demand was met by burning of coal, right? Coal-based thermal power plant. But what is the issue with the coal-based thermal power plant? The amount of pollution it releases, pollutant it releases, the greenhouse gases it releases has been the main cause of the climate change and global warming. So most of countries are shifting toward which kind of energy? Renewable sources of energy. What are the best example? Solar photovoltaic cell you use, wind turbines that you use. Again, in these sectors, what kind of critical minerals require? So these are some of the major ones: silicon, tellurium, indium, gallium, and all that. Right? Then AI based or AI driven growth boom that you see, largely driven by which kind of material? Semiconductors. Right? The storage devices that you have. So cloud storage that you have. Similarly, what else? 5G and the next generation electronics also are utilizing which kind of mineral? Critical mineral. Advanced defense system, the radars you are building, the satellites you are building, right? The stealth system that you are building, they also require large amount of what? Critical mineral. So we can say that critical minerals are not only important for any one sector of economy, they are going to impact and transform all the major sectors of economy, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is energy sector, whether it is electronic sector, or even whether it is the defense sector as such. That is why we are talking about critical minerals, and India is also focused upon it. Now the problem is that iron ore, coal, if you look, it is spread across large number of countries. India is also the largest producer of the second largest producer of steel in the world. Why? Because we are endowed with large amount of coal and iron ore. But as far as the critical minerals are concerned, majority of them are concentrated in few countries only. And there also, which country has the highest capacity? That is China. If you look at the top 3 countries in refining share, top 3 countries make up 86% of the critical mineral, with China having control over 19 out of 20 strategic minerals in the world. So to some extent we can say that because more than 90% of China processing are of rare earth and graphite, 75%, more than 75% of cobalt is produced and refined where? In China. More than 70% of lithium chemicals, where are they refined? China. That's why entire world to some extent today is dependent upon the supply from China itself. So if any country has adversarial relationship or bad relation with China, China can bring in what? They have actually done this. Okay, last year they put some of these critical minerals under export control. Export control means they said that countries such as US and Canada, these minerals will not be exported. Right? Where is semiconductor AI boom is taking place? In US. Will that industry be disrupted or not? It will disrupt. So US is able to overall, what you can call it, overcome it, because they have good relation with Taiwan. So a lot of critical minerals are being refined in Taiwan also. Yeah, that is the advantage. So emerging supply risk we have, and based on the recent data, it is believed that by year 2035, copper is also very important mineral in the electronic and electrical sector as such. So 30% of copper deficit world will face. This is not for India. The entire world will face by year which? 2035, because the supply has become much more lesser compared to demand. In India also this is the same case. Though we have a lot of copper mines in Rajasthan area, Madhya Pradesh area, Jharkhand area, but to meet our demand, we have to depend upon what? On the import assets. That is going to be the case. Lithium supply constraints you have, and that's why Government of India is in talk with countries, and that we have discussed in class. It's called as lithium triangle. If you remember, so lithium triangle. Lithium triangle refer to 3 countries that are located in South America. Okay, these are, for example, Chile is one country. So Chile. Then you have Bolivia, then you have Argentina, right? So 3 countries of South America, Chile, Bolivia and Argentina, they hold a large volume of lithium, and that's why this entire region collectively is referred as what? Lithium triangle, okay, because of the map like this. So for example, Bolivia is here, Chile is here, Argentina is here. So you can connect these countries. What kind of shape you will get? Triangle like shape. Okay, so lithium triangle. So many of the government companies of India are in talk with these lithium triangle countries to buy some of the mines, okay, or have some stake in some of the mines, so we can bring raw lithium from there and then refine in India, right? And in India, lithium supply is very limited. Some of the lithium we have found in Jammu and Kashmir and Apart from that, where in Mandya region of Karnataka. Okay, but still it is in the exploration stage. We are not mining here. Both of these. So in the future, maybe it's possible. Overall, India itself faces deficiency of which kind of mineral? Rare earth minerals. 17 minerals are there that are considered as rare earth mineral. In periodic table, you will find a separate series is given in the bottom of periodic table called as lanthanide series. So all the minerals of lanthanide series are rare earth mineral. The demand is going to rise further in India largely because of the users in which sector. The biggest user would be clean energy, again solar, wind and all that as such. And because of geographical supply constraint, all the countries are bringing in some sort of policies how to secure the critical mineral supply. Now why India needs mineral security? Because of the objective or target it has set. First target is what India is planning. By 2070, we'll have net zero greenhouse gas carbon emission, we can say. Why? Because we have to reduce significantly our coal-based thermal power plant. Currently, about 70% of our electricity supply comes from where? Coal-based thermal power plant. So those we have to completely shift to renewable energy, hydro, solar, thermal, and this wind and all that. Due to this demand of transiting our energy sector, we require about 169 million tons of different types of critical minerals as such. Demand is 51% higher based on the current policy pathway. What does it mean? Currently our policy is National Critical Mineral Policy, for example, you take. If you implement that policy, if you buy a stake in different areas and whatever well-established supply chain you have, if you compare them with our demand, what we see? Demand is 51% higher than the supply that we'll get in future. Especially from which sector? Electrical vehicle and renewable manufacturing sector as such. Semiconductor ecosystem we are trying to build in India also. And that's why we have to bring in new policy or make significant change in our policy so that we can ensure the uninterrupted supply of critical minerals in country as such. How we can do so? India has set up some strategic priorities. First of all, we cannot be dependent upon a single country. Whether it is China, US, UK, Australia, does not matter. Because you never know that when relationship with a particular country can deteriorate. Best example is India-Canada relation. If you go back till 2020 or 2021 also, India and Canada enjoyed very strong, good relationship. Okay, since 1960s, 1970s. Then in 2023-4, Canada alleged that one of its citizens was killed by the government of India, okay, because of Khalistan-based affiliations and all that. India rejected this particular allegation, but still it led to significant decline in the bilateral relations with India and Canada. Canada is also one of the major source of uranium, okay, which India brings. Suppose rare earth minerals also we are migrating from here. What can happen? We can lose our entire supply chain or significant reduction can be seen there. That's why the best way to protect our energy security or critical mineral security is to have what kind of import? Diversified import. Okay, to have this import from many countries rather than depending upon one country. That is one. Second, wherever we have the possibility, what we have to do? We have to explore minerals in India and we have to also carry out mining there. Two example I told you, lithium reserves. Where we have found? Jammu and Kashmir region. Second, where we have found? In the Karnataka and all that. So we have to focus on mining so as soon as possible. Third, we have to also build infrastructure that can help us with high purity refining. Okay, like lithium, raw lithium, you can take from the Chile, Argentina, Bolivia, but it cannot be used directly in the batteries. You have to first refine it and then manufacture it in the form of batteries or electrical, for example, solar panels and all that. Then component manufacturing is something we can also focus here. Okay, think what actually is the thought here. Suppose that a country has large scale lithium raw material, lithium reserves, but country does not have manufacturing capacity, right? But it want to also be part of AI driven growth. It also want to shift toward the electrical vehicle. It also want to shift toward renewable energy, right? They cannot directly use these minerals because they do not have manufacturing capacity. What do they require? They require refined materials, or they require, for example, direct battery that they can put in the electrical vehicle, start driving it, or scooters and start driving it. There you can build a complementary relationship. India, suppose, have very less or limited lithium reserves, but it is able to do what? make components. If it is able to get raw material, it can build a lithium battery. Don't you think both these countries can then help each other? Okay, this country will give raw lithium, India will make battery, supply to this country. What will happen? A long lasting partnership you can build on this basis, because this country is dependent upon India, India is dependent upon this particular country as such. Okay, so that's how you build the complementary relationship. So you build the component manufacturing capacity or refining capacity. Overall, by taking all these measures into account, what we can say, we can overall focus upon supply chain resilience, no matter what kind of geopolitical disruptions is going on, and economic sovereignty can be ensured for India. That is the strategic priorities for India, right? So these are the 5 topics that we have to discuss. Now, if you look at few of the questions from here, what we have discussed with reference to INS Malwa, consider the following statement belongs to the indigenously designed Mahe class anti-submarine warfare shallow watercraft. True or false? That is true. Mahe class designed primarily for operation in shallow coastal waters. That is also correct. Mahe class vessels are being constructed by Cochin Shipyard Limited, right? So all the 3 options, 1, 2, 3. Then critical minerals, important for clean energy technology and advanced defense system. True or false? That is correct statement. China has a dominant position in the global processing of several critical minerals, right? India's demand for energy transition minerals is expected to increase significantly under its what pathway? Net zero pathway of 2017. So again, all 3 statements. Right. Then coming to pellet gun, generally classified as non-lethal weapons but can cause permanent blindness and fatal injuries. Okay, so keep in mind, it is not lethal. That's why it is used for the crowd control, right? Plastic bullets were introduced as an alternative following concerns over pellet gun injuries in Kashmir. That is also correct. Shock batons use electrical shock to cause what? Temporary pain and muscle disruption. So again, what is the correct option? 1, 2 and 3 as such. So that's all for this particular video.